met Dave. And this woman come along out of a car, a young woman out of a car, and she said, "I've always wanted to meet you." I said, "And me?" She goes, "No, that bloke next to you." So I said, "Oh, you know Dave?" She goes, "Dave?" She goes, "No, that's Peter Stringfellow, isn't it?" So maybe that's
That is the worst introduction I've had in my life.
Separated at birth, they were.
Secret, Dave. Change your name. Get a few more volts, mate.
So one of my comrades said last night, because I told that story as well to some of the comrades last night, and they said, "Well, Dave, you better. What about the Bee Gees? If they said you looked like the Bee Gees, would that be any better?" I think it probably would. Yeah. Comrades, we've had two fantastic speeches on the local candidate. We live in tumultuous times, and the more tumultuous times are immediately in front of us, because the scale of the assault, which Hannah and Bob have referred to, the scale is unimaginable. People don't know what's going to hit them. I want to start off though by looking at some developments in Brighton, and I'm going to hold something up here. If the television cameras were here, is there anybody from the Argus here? Oh right, that means I can swear, right? I'm going to hold this up because I've been twice up to Sussex University, and I want to welcome the students here to Stop the Cuts camp. I've been a teacher in higher education for 30 odd years. I'm a professor in education. I've tried to get protest movements going at various universities, and what I've seen at Sussex University has been the most magnificent that I've seen in higher education. Protests against cuts, protests against cuts in jobs, cuts in services. It's been the most magnificent I've seen since the events of 1968. So I'm going to just hold this up in solidarity with the Sussex students. That's what it says. Because as the speakers will know, 6 students have actually been suspended for exercising their democratic right to occupy a building. And that democratic right, even the local paper, I'm not going to read out the editorial, but you know, I've been picking up papers lately, like the local paper, the Argus, and it could almost have come from the Socialist, or Socialist Worker, or Socialist Resistance, or the Morning Star. What it's done, it's talked about in the editorial, it says, Sussex University management gone too far. It's a basic right to demonstrate. And something that Bob mentioned in his speech, and I'm going to end up my speech on this, is about how scary it is. What's going to happen unless we stop it? And it is scary, and here I'm not just talking about the cuts in jobs, the cuts in public services. I'm talking about 2 types of scariness. And one is the role of the police. I have never ever, until I went to that demo at Sussex University, I've never ever seen riot police on a campus before. I've never ever heard for 40 years. I mean, France, some other countries, yes, but in this country, I've never seen police dogs on campus against students. I've never seen police with batons against students. This is scary. Louis Althusser, the French Marxist, talked about the repressive apparatuses of the state, and they are being ratcheted up. And we must be prepared to meet those. One of the stories, my dad was brought up in a part of Hackney which wasn't fashionable then and isn't fashionable now, and he was a bare knuckle fighter outside pubs to earn money in the 1920s, and he taught us a couple of lessons. One lesson was the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And so as I grew up in life, I saw that the biggest bully of all was the capitalist class. That's the biggest bully of all, the capitalist class. Don't just take the sweets from the kids in the playground, it takes lives. Working class people in some areas live 17 years of healthy life less than people in wealthier areas. One lesson he taught me then was the bigger they are, the harder they fall. But a lesson I taught myself, because I was a scrapper, a lesson I taught myself was one pair of fists, one voice, one pair of legs, one banner. It doesn't do it. But you have 10, it's better than 1. You have 1,000, it's better than 10. you have 1 million or 10 million, then we can stop the attack by the capitalist class, and we can resist the repressive apparatuses of the state. So that's one type of scariness, the police and the laws. The other type of scariness, and I feel, as most of the comrades here do, I feel very, very passionate about this, and that is about racism. I'm an immigrant. We're all immigrants. My family came from Germany in the 1830s and from Ireland. Like most immigrants, they moved because of political or economic. So I'm an immigrant. We're all immigrants. We have a proud history in Brighton. Going back, 1926, the Battle of Lewis Road, in the general strike, workers stood up to the mounted police. 1930s, there was a member of the Communist Party climbed on top of the dome where the British Union of Fascists was having their rally. And I think even Oswald Mosley, the leader of the fascists in the 30s, was the main speaker there. And a member of the CP got up on the top, electrician he was, and he altered the sound system. So at the very start of the British Union of Fascists rally, there came the International. So that was the 30s, and then the 40s, and the 50s and the 60s, and in the 70s, through two means, we stopped the fascists in Brighton. Two groups, and we did it in two ways. The Anti-Nazi League, of which I was a local official, and the Anti-Fascist Committee. And together, wherever a fascist leaflet was put, then we would put 2, 3, 4 leaflets. And wherever the fascists met on the street corners to push Jews, Asians, blacks out of the way, then we made sure that we were there in greater numbers. But last week, and this is the scariness, I mean, Bob's talked about barking. Last week, the English Defence League mobilised in London, and it was the first fascist march through the centre, in the centre of London, since the 1930s. Now I wasn't personally there. Some of you were. We were there, unite against fascism, various anti-fascist groups in greater numbers. But that is the other scariness, because some of us lived through those times in the 70s. I didn't live through the times in the 30s, although my family did in the East End. That's the other scariness. I was Labour. I joined the Labour Party on my 16th birthday, snotty-nosed little kid, went over to see Nobby Clark, who's RMT, secretary of the local Labour Party, and I marched over on my 16th birthday. I couldn't wait to join the Labour Party, the party that would represent my class. So I joined, and I stayed, and became parliamentary candidate a couple of times, leader of a Labour group, and I stayed, and I stayed, and then Thatcher came in, and Thatcher did for her class what I thought Labour should do for my class. But Labour never did. And still I stayed, thinking, as a Marxist, there's no code word here, by the way, as a Marxist within the Labour Party, there's no code for anything. I was an independent Marxist in the Labour Party. I stayed there hoping it would change, but it never did, and as Bob had said, and as Hannah has said, it never will. It's a big business party with a slight social democratic veneer, but at the end of the day, it's still a party which engages, wait till I finish this sentence, engages in class war, but not for the working class. Class war on behalf of the capitalist class. I could talk, how long have I got?
5 minutes then.